Welcome to today's webinar. To make sure you're on the correct webinar, this is the BSM Discovery and the Runtime Service Model. My name is Jim Copio, and the co-founder of the Business Service Management Special Interest Group. A little bit more about myself. I also co-run a chapter in the Carolinas, and I've been part of Vivid and the predecessor organization for about 13 years. So the BSM Special Interest Group is led by myself and Sandy Schubert and Mark Laird, who's actually our presenter after I'm finished speaking, and Denver Meeks, and I believe all of us are on the line. This particular SIG event was put together by the input of probably almost everyone on this phone, so we appreciate your feedback and information of what you like to see. Please keep it coming so we can have additional future events that that you would like to see. Again, I mentioned Mark will be presenting. He's the pre-sales lead at Steria in the UK, and he'll give you a little bit more background on himself shortly. From a housekeeping perspective, this is a live session. It is being recorded and is available to all members. You'll get an email after the event with the links and all the questions and answers and all the information that you'll hear today. In terms of today's session, you have the ability to type questions when we get to that point in the presentation, and we'll be giving answers live, and cover as many as we can. If we run out of time, we'll capture them and they'll be part of the post-event activities. So pretty standard. If you're not familiar, the webinar control panel, probably on your right-hand side, is pretty self-explicit, but it gives you a chance, obviously, to ask the questions that we talked about earlier. And I think we really kind of covered all the housekeeping. We're going to really jump right into the main event and let Mark start. So, Mark, do you want to pick up and show your screen and start presenting?
Yep. Jim, can you hand it over to me?
Okay. Just bear with me, technical difficulties. Okay. And Mark, you good?
Yes.
All righty. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. As Jim said, my name's Mark Laird. I work for Steria in the UK. And the topic today is what we've called the secret sauce of BSM. So the discovery and the runtime service model and how this integrates with BSM. So my agenda is to introduce you to Steria and the project that we ran for our sister office in Norway. What our project was all about and the requirements, some of the design and process challenges that we went through, the solution itself, the benefits that we've seen so far, and what we're planning for the next 6 to 12 months. So being a European organisation, I suspect that very few of you have heard of us. We're a 20,000 strong European IT service provider. We were founded 43 years ago now, 1969. We're one of the top 10 European IT services companies. We're based predominantly near shore, so within Europe, but 30% of our resource is based in India. And since our buyout, since our share flotation in 1999, we've grown 8 times. And we're 16 countries wide, with 13 countries in Europe, Morocco, Singapore and Hong Kong. So some of what we do, we work top 10 European banks, a number of top European retailers, the likes of Tesco's, Boots, the UK Post Office, a large number of transport operators, a big focus on UK and central government within Europe, and a number of top international organisations such as NATO and Defence. So our sister company in Norway, it's a reasonably large organisation. There are somewhere in the region of 500 staff, based into 4 areas: consulting, actually working with our clients to promote the strategic use of technology; applications development, where we look after complex IT projects and actual coding; infrastructure transformation, where we're looking at building new IT infrastructures for the customers; and then infrastructure operations, where we're running those IT systems. So in all, it's a concept to reality. We will work with the customers right from day one, right the way through to running the operations for them at the end. Again, within our Norwegian operation, we have a range of customers from defence, as you'd expect, from oil and gas. So we have some offshore customers. We do a significant amount around police, customs and telecommunications. We have a few challenges with some of our customers. We run the Norwegian Road Authority. It's a 3.5-hour journey from one end of the country to the other by plane, which I suppose from American listeners that's probably nothing, but for us that's a long way. It takes me longer to get from one end of Norway to the other than it does to get from the UK in the first place. So, what have we been doing with HP, and why have we been doing it? Some 3-4 years ago, we took a decision within the organisation that we needed to standardise on our tooling, and we had an opportunity at the time to drive some cost savings and to reduce some existing platforms. We started the year in 2009 with 14 service desks running on 9 different platforms, and that was seen as not a way of allowing us to drive business. So one of our objectives was to standardise those technology platforms at the group level, to standardise the technology that underpins those across the country level, but also to deliver those through a documented catalogue, documented framework. So what we have now is we have a single service desk. It's run out of our European organisation, and underpinning that we have a single set of technologies that support it. So if we take that down to the next level, the aim that we have is that all countries will be deployed using the standard model. And the model that we have is that we have a central core service centre, service desk architecture. It's actually run out of, will be run out of our French data centre. It's currently in the UK. We're migrating it to France as part of a system upgrade. That has all of our incident management, problem management, so all of our ITIL-based services are run on top of that platform. What we then have is, at a country level, we have an operations manager-based architecture.
Slight hiccup. So where were we? So the group level structure that we've implemented allows us to keep our sensitive data at the country level, where we can actually decide, make decisions about what data is actually allowed to leave the country. What it also allows us to do is, from a country level, is to give visibility of country deployments to the staff within that country. So we're actually not providing that. We're not imposing the big brother type approach on our in-country staff, and what they've actually got is the ability to manage their customers using the deployment. So if we take that again down, the next level down, we have a standard portfolio and method. That's the same across all of our countries. So we have one deployment method. It doesn't matter whether we're deploying into France or Norway or Sweden. It's always done the same way. That gives us much faster, much more stable, off-the-shelf deployment. We do potentially miss out at some of the finer tweaks that HP have, but what we have is a system that's probably 50% quicker for us to deploy than 2 years ago, and about probably 50 to 60% cheaper. So what we have is we have operations manager, we have our agents, we have our data that are below that, and then off to the side we have business service management, which we use for our dashboarding. So if we have a look at the business service management itself, and for I suspect the majority of you, this is a fairly common model. This is HP's architecture. So at the bottom we have the infrastructure performance management. We have server, network, virtualization, and third-party monitoring tools, all of which we have deployed within the customers. And at the top level, we have our application performance management. So we're looking at end-user application experience, transaction, and diagnostics. And we've used the runtime service model then to glue those two things together. And then really the same view, but in a slightly different organisation, but also extending that out onto the right-hand side to the new service intelligence tool set. So looking at service level management and the service reporting, service optimization. So that's a subject for a whole new webinar. And again, within BSM itself, what we've got is the OMI platform. So this is the event browser within Business Service Manager. So the ability to bring all those events from Operations Manager, from SiteScope, through the HP integration adapter and into the BSM platform via the runtime service model. Now, one of the things that this diagram doesn't show, and it's in one of the new releases, in fact, that there is now IBM Tivoli available as an out-of-the-box integration. So for us, the Microsoft SCOM and the Nagios were key for our Norwegian operation. We have customers with System Center Operations Manager and Nagios where we're not able to go and do a rip and replace, much as HP might like us to, but we have customer implementations that we're not able to change. So what was the actual project that we were doing? So as I said, we were looking to standardize. We had challenges with the existing solution that was there. There was little redundancy across the existing platform. We had higher costs because we were buying at a project level. We weren't looking at higher discount levels. And often the projects were expensive. We had budget overruns, and we were building from scratch. So the Norwegian operation took a view that we needed to standardize our services. We actually established what they called a factory for services. So we have an IT factory. I suppose it's akin to a cloud architecture. We have some standardized services. So we have strategic technology choices. So for every single key part of the technology, we have chosen architecture, we have chosen technologies. We've automated all of our repetitive tasks. We use the HP operations orchestration for automation. and we've had the whole service externally audited. So from an architecture point of view, we can go to our government customers. So what were the outcomes? Stable services. The whole architecture has been built with resiliency in mind. It's dual site. It's VMware with storage replication. We have low costs because we were able to go to our suppliers right from the start. And it's allowed us to actually deliver our projects cheaper and faster. So what did the architecture look like? We started with 4 key building blocks. We had our service management architecture. Again, I'll go into more detail. We have our configuration management architecture, service health, and our operational management. So within the service management architecture, that's our change control, our incident and problem management, and sits on top of what we've called the service state database. Within our configuration management, we have Discovery. We have our configuration management system. Over on the top right, within the service health, we have the dashboard. We have our end user monitoring, so our service monitoring. We have our consolidated operations bridge, and all of those are underpinned then with the runtime service model. And at the bottom, we have essentially the agents, the technology that's actually gathering the data. So looking from an operational point of view, looking from the network. We use both agent and agentless monitoring. And we've also put our reporting and capacity management in there for the moment. And if we then take that down to a tool level, within our service management function, we've got change, release, incident and problem. Within the configuration management, we're running DDMA, so that's the Discovery and Dependency Mapping Advanced for our customers. We're running the HP Universal CMDB for our configuration management. And then over on the service health, as you'd expect, we're running BSM with the service level management, the synthetic business process monitor. We're investigating the real user monitor at the moment. And then within, we're also running the OMI for our event browser. We're not using the topology-based piece at the moment. I'll get onto that. And then underpinning all of that, we have our probes, we have Operations Manager, Site Scope, Performance Manager. We're using WhatsApp and Cisco Works for our network monitoring. And then we have some application spies and templates. So how does it all work? I'll just wait for it. So we've got DDMA deployed at the customer level. We have a DDMA probe that's actually deployed per customer, and the data is then stored in a central universal CMDB server. We're not using the HP model for multi-tenancy within UCMDB. What we found was that the multi-tenancy model actually segregates the data into silos that are not visible from any central point. Now, we understand why HP did that, but for our environment, that prevents us connecting that data into a shared infrastructure. It also means that you have to log out and log back in again for managing separate customers. And it prevents us doing cross-customer reporting, so for example, capacity management. So what we did was we worked with HP to actually add fields into both the DDMA and the UCMDB data model to support a managed service provider. And what we actually do is we use the DDMA probe name to populate a tenant owner field, a customer field. And that works so long as we are allowed to have multiple probes for one customer, but we cannot have one probe managing more than one customer. So the customer name is actually populated by the probe. So in terms of discovery, the DDMA data itself is pulled into the Universal CMDB. We took a decision quite early on in the project as part of a process review that we would manage all of our data within the UCMDB. So our configuration management team do all of their service modeling and all of their filtering at the CMDB level. So that is our single place for doing that level of monitoring, management rather. The advantage for us is that we don't have to train more than a small CMS team in the use of Universal CMDB. But what we also don't have to do is to have the operational staff managing within Business Service Manager. We don't have to have business managing services either. So what we did within the UCMDB was that we actually then built our customer services, are actually built so that within the UCMDB. We have a unique standardized name that is based upon the customer, the country, and the service that's being offered. And that naming standard allows us to integrate with both Business Service Management, our Service Manager, but also with a number of other tools such as our Service Wiki, which we use, and I'll show you in a minute. So the integration with the runtime service model. So we took, again, standard integration from the UCMDB and into Business Service Manager's runtime service model. We actually use standard web services and some out-of-the-box topology query scripts. And what we, again, as part of our project initiation, we actually took quite an early decision that we would keep our tools as out of the box as possible, allowing us to do upgrades in the future as easily as possible. So what you can see on the screen here is that we have our UCMDB sync with the IT factory. And this runs every day, and it pulls the data across. By taking the approach that we would standardize all of our services and manage all of our services from within the CMDB, what this allows us to do is present all of that information up to the Business Service Manager via this runtime service model. But it also means that we don't have to do any further work within Business Service Manager. So as our main audience for the BSM deployment is in fact our operational team, they don't necessarily have to understand or know how to manage those services. They just need to know they exist, and they need to understand from an application level and from an infrastructure level what services are impacted or what services can be impacted when we have an infrastructure problem. So as we can see on our screen here, we have an application called Small World, and we can see what the servers that actually sit that it sits on top of. I mentioned earlier that one of the things that we've done is to integrate with some external systems, and one of the issues we had quite early on was that the because of the nature of the way that the setup is done in our office in Norway, is that we have some operational staff who are doing the day-to-day work. They're doing the night shift and actually managing the infrastructure during the day. We also have our service-based staff who are talking to the customers. They are dealing with the customers on a day-to-day basis. They actually understand the services that are being provided to our customers. And we have our CMDB team who essentially provide the glue between the two. What we actually did was to build a services wiki. It's based on the same engine that Wikipedia runs on. And what we've actually done is to integrate the wiki within BSM, so that when within the services view, the operational staff can actually click on a service, and they get a wiki page that describes the service. It describes what the service actually does, and it gives them an idea of the application availability and hours of cover. And this actually then allows them to take a more proactive approach in terms of dealing with the customers. Again, the wiki itself is managed by the business team. So again, they need to understand how to update wiki articles and how to describe a business service. But then the operational team just have an automated update view of who's impacted, what the customer is. What it does do is it takes advantage of the CI naming standard. So again, what we've actually done is because we've got these naming standards that are driven through from within the Discovery and into the UCMDB, that then allows us to pick up these pages within the wiki with not a significant amount of coding. What we've then got is a slightly bigger picture. So if we drill, we've gone up a level. We've moved away from the wiki itself, and we're actually looking at again, the service view. This is the view we put together for our service management team. We've got our service view. We've got our status dashboards giving us some service levels over time. Sorry, current service levels. We've got service levels over time, and we've also got our topology view at the bottom. So we've integrated everything that we think a service manager might need as part of their day job into a single pane to give them visibility across the board. So what were the benefits that we saw as part of doing this project, especially around the runtime service model and the configuration management? Well, firstly, it is much easier to implement. We have a standard documentation set. We have some standard integrations. We were able to reuse design that we already had as part of earlier work. For us as a service provider, the solution is easier to cost and bid. It's a much more straightforward approach. We're using sort of off-the-shelf designs. Because it's an industrialized solution, it's easier and cheaper for us to support. We have a number of implementations across our European organisation, but they're all implemented the same way, which means that we can pull resource in across countries to do work for us. We're providing a platform for growth for some other technologies such as SCOM, the Cisco UCS platform that we actually run a lot of the architectures on. Service Manager 9.3, which we've implemented. It went live earlier this week. And as I mentioned earlier, we've now got this single configuration management system so that we manage everything once within the solution. And in terms of futures, so what else would we like to do? We're currently deploying Service Manager 9.3. Once that's deployed for our Norwegian operation, we will integrate that with Business Service Manager and the UCMDB. We're going to extend the use of Service Level Manager. We're currently in the process of migrating a number of other tools out of the picture. So once we've done that, we will extend that use. We're going to extend our use of BSM. So we're currently investigating SCOM. We're investigating real user monitoring and extending our end user monitoring to Norway. The SAN-based billing. And we're also going to complete the integration of OMI. So we've got, as I said, we've got a number of other tools such as SCOM that we will need to plug in. At this point, I'm going to hand back to Jim, and I think we'll then open it up for a Q&A session.
Okay, everyone. Thank you, Mark. Definitely get in your questions, and we'll try to cover as many as we can. Again, these questions and answers will be captured, after the event. You can go to the website and pick them up. Okay. Obviously, there is the standard question: is the session being recorded for playback, and will the slides be available? Of course, like I said, the answer is yes. The slides in the webinar recording will be posted on the BSM SIG page of the Vivid website, so you can pick them up there. Okay, it looks like we haven't gotten any other questions at this point. We could take another minute to have people type them in, and we'll cover them as they come. Let's see here if I do this. Okay, it's a pretty quiet group.
We actually have some questions, Jim.
Oh, okay.
Yep. If you scroll way down in the questions pane. So Annabelle asks, how are you capturing the data from UCS?
At the moment for UCS, we're using SNMP for the infrastructure piece, and we're using the VMware templates within Sitescope for the systems themselves, but we're working with our Cisco partners, Cisco team, to actually look at what else we can get out of the system. Certainly around the configuration management piece.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Looks like we have another question. Are you populating your full CMDB to RTSM or just subset per customer?
At the moment, it's only a subset of the UCMDB that's being populated into the RTSM. It's predominantly servers, relationships, network. So it's more of the physical device level. But we are doing the same. We're populating the same things across every customer. So it isn't. It's the same items, but it's for every customer. But it isn't everything that's in the RTSM. That's in the UCMDB. We decided that there was just too much information within the UCMDB to populate.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, Mark. And we have another question. On one of the graphs, Mark, it was pointed that UCMDB connected to RTSM. Isn't there another way RTSM is connecting to the probe? And from where is it getting the UCMDB elements?
Yes, I think there are a number of ways that you can connect the RTSM. Because we'd taken this decision quite early on that we wanted to manage the configuration from a single point, and we have a fairly mature configuration management team in our office in Norway. We took the decision that the UCMDB would be our single point. So we pull all the data from the Discovery probes into the UCMDB, and then we're managing the UCMDB, building the services, We then pulled from there into the runtime service model. So that was the approach we took. I know that there are other ways of doing it, but that was what we felt was better for us in terms of process.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Here's a question we always get just about every webinar. What was your most significant challenge in integrating all these tools?
I'm trying to think which was the worst. Most significant challenge. I suppose the worst one for us, or the one that we got wrong the first time, was around naming standards. Making sure that we actually had to go back and redo some work because we actually ended up with conflicting names. So our biggest challenge was actually getting people to adopt a naming standard quite early on in the project that was flexible enough to allow us some autonomy within the country, but also rigid enough that when we put that data up into a European-wide service manager, that we don't end up with customer IDs or customers that are not unique. So again, what we've actually got is almost a two-way conversation that happens between the configuration management team and the service management team, so that when a new customer is brought on board, that customer name is agreed on up front. It's reserved within the service management solution, because our ultimate goal is that all incidents, all events will end up within Service Manager, but they need to be tied to unique services and unique systems so that we can make them onward managed. So yeah, our major challenge, I suppose, was that getting people to agree that naming standard and then enforcing it both at a country level but also within a group structure.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Do you have any thoughts to using N&M for network monitoring?
Yes, actually, Norway is probably the only customer or the only country where we do not use N&M for our network monitoring. Within the UK, we've been using certainly N&M old version, certainly since version 6. So probably a good 10 years now. We've recently upgraded to version 9, and in fact we are actually in the process of extending out to the network automation and network configuration management. So yes, absolutely, we're moving. We're definitely going to be having, when we upgrade our UK infrastructure, which we're doing at the moment, we will be putting network monitoring using NNMI and the network configuration management using network automation, and integrating into BSM, of course.
Right. Thank you. What about fields? Were there any particular fields that were key to standardizing across your tool set in order to facilitate integration of the tools?
Probably for us, it was the tenant owner field, which was essentially the glue that allows us to segregate the data within the UCMDB and within BSM. So we use the tenant owner field extensively to allow us to build views that are only pick up a customer's information. So that field was mandated right from the start that we have to be able to segregate the data, because we've not used the HTTP model, because we've not used the built-in multi-tenancy within UCMDB. We had to enforce the use of that tenant owner field. That's probably the key one, that and the server name.
Okay, thank you, Mark. What about for BSM Discovery? You mentioned there's 3 methods. One of them is using a separate UCMDB repository with DDMA. Why did you decide that particular method?
I suppose predominantly because we've done our best over the last 3 years to sort of follow the HP blueprints in terms of their recommended standards for service delivery. mainly because then if we do run into issues, we've got a little bit of leeway in terms of going back to them and saying, well, actually this method doesn't work. So it was because actually that's the way they recommend it.
Okay, thank you. There's somebody on the in this session that wants to know, or they're mentioning that they have an HP VIS SPY. Have you looked at using that for UCS?
Not yet, but
Not
it
yet?
sounds like I should be. Is that a VIS? Is that?
And how many CIs in the UCMDB? Any performance issues with that?
I think we're up to about 150,000 at the moment. I'm not aware of any performance issues, but it's still a growing environment. But I can't say that I'm aware of anything. It's running on SQL, but it's a clustered SQL server running on some fairly large infrastructure. So no, nothing so far.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Mark, do you use this for IBM mainframe or AS400 systems using the UMCDB?
We don't today. We don't have any IBM mainframes under management at the moment. We do have in our operation. We do have AS400s, and we're using the SPY or the AS400 SPY for actually monitoring them. We don't have them integrated into the UCMDB just yet. Again, that's a subject for a discussion during this year.
Okay, thank you. Have you or do you plan to integrate virtualization information via the iSpy for virtualization?
We do, yes. What we've actually done as part of a secondary project within our Norwegian operation is to look at the VI SPY, the virtual infrastructure SPY, and in fact what we're doing as part of our UK technology refresh is to take that information from the VI SPY, and we will be putting that into the UCMDB as well. So what we have found though is from the DDMA probes is that the DDMA probes actually pull back a certain level of virtualization information, certainly host, guest and host information. So some of that information is available from within the DDMA probe itself.
Okay, thank you. We have a good question on SCOM. Have you integrated SCOM 2012 with OMI or OMW, and if so, how?
No, not yet. No, that's not something that we've done just yet. We're actually looking at. It is something that we have customers with it. We've not done it yet.
Okay, thank you. What are your thoughts about the BSM platform? You think it will stay in the spotlight in the near future? Obviously, it's pretty hot right now.
I have to be careful with my answer here. I think so, yes. I think yes. I think there are a number of innovations that are coming down the line that HP have got, such as the service intelligence technology, so service health reporter, service health optimizer, service health analyzer. I think they're going to build on the foundation that BSM has. So in terms of the topology-based information, so the CMDB, and maybe pulling some of the reporting data together. Whether they blur the line into what BSM was originally put out. So if you go back to the Mercury days, what was BSM then? It was all about applications management. I think yes, BSM is going to evolve into a new product, I think, or certainly a new direction. But I think it will still be BSM under the covers. I think it will just have more capability. That's just my view.
No, I agree with that. How many servers and network devices do you manage? And also, how many applications or services do you manage?
I have to be right. So stereo itself, we're looking certainly within the UK, we've got about 10,000 devices under management. Norway, we're currently just under 2,000, but that's growing quite significantly. Network devices, in the UK, we're about 18,000, and the Norwegian operation is probably in the region of about 1,000, 2,000. And services for Norway, I think we're up to about, it's averaging about 10 to 15 services per customer, so we're probably at about 100, 150 services.
Okay, thank you. Here's a good question. What swayed you to the HP tool set versus going with a competitor tool set?
Oh, that's an interesting question. There's a lot of history involved there, but without boring people, and I'm aware it's being recorded. To be perfectly honest with you, it was a choice we made. We made the decision probably 8-9 years ago, predominantly around the service desk technologies. At the time, we were using an IBM, or what is now an IBM tool. HP was brought in to do the service management piece, and it sort of evolved out from the service management piece, certainly around the ease of integrations. And then we've gradually evolved our use, certainly with things like Scope. We are predominantly using 60% of our monitoring is now agentless using Scope. So I think HP have a good tool. I think that they have a good breadth of coverage. If we were going out to the market again, looking across the board, would we choose HP again? Quite possibly. They're not. It's not a bad tool set. They're up first or second, I think, in most of the area. There are certainly some more agile companies out there. Some very good smaller companies such as Nimsoft. But it's whether it comes down to breadth of coverage and acceptability. Some of our customers also security accreditation and the ability to actually have the backup if things go wrong. So, yeah, would we choose the same one again? I think probably. Again, my view, but I'm sure I get support from my team.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I actually do not see any new questions. Wait a minute, let me check. Yeah, we do have one. Sorry. Is the BSM available to your CU, or is it for your use only?
So it's I'm assuming that means customer unit, or
Yes.
So yes and no. It depends entirely on the customer. For some of our customers, they have access. For some customers, we don't allow. We allow access to our client-facing team who provide the customer with reporting. We have a couple of BSM platforms where they are customer-specific, and in which case we do allow the customer web-based access. Part of the reason we don't give we don't give access more freely is that we're not 100% convinced at the moment that we can lock the access down to just a customer or just a view. So it is something we'd like to do. We've had a number of requests through from customers, and it's something that we're exploring with HP in terms of the ability to provide that maybe in the future release.
Yeah, this question's, I think, a little bit off the technical topic, but I'll ask it anyway. How would you rate HP sales and trouble tickets? I'm not sure where it's going.
HP sales they're horrible. No, I don't know. You see, again, because we're an HP partner, we don't actually have a significant amount to do with HP sales per se. We get them coming in to try and sell us software, but they're not bad. We don't have to deal with them too much at the sales level. In terms of support, significantly better than it was a couple of years ago. We have a very good relationship with our support manager. Again, we're sized large enough that we actually have our support manager on site once a month. He has a desk in our office, and he actually he comes in and works from our office whether there's things for him to do or not. So we actually have, we have a good relationship, and we use him if we need to escalate things. But support side, support-wise, I would say it is very good. It's good. It's also the downside. I would say it does differ by product. Some of the network automation support is really, really good. We're quite lucky. One of the level 3 guys is based in the UK, so we can always get hold of him. Some of the other tools, the support can be a little bit more challenging. But
okay, thank you. We're getting close to the end, Mark. We do have one about, do you provide an ad hoc reporting tool, and if so, which one?
We use two. Yes, we use two reporting tools at the moment. We use the BSM tool within BSM itself. We actually use Crystal to do some ad hoc reporting, but we do that by exporting the data from within BSM out to a database, which we then use Crystal on top of. And we are in the process of exploring the Westbury solution as part of the new service management direction, again, that HP are moving in.
Okay, thank you, Mark. We're wrapped up on questions with, I guess, 3 minutes to go, so right on schedule. Susan or Stephanie, do you want to do any wrap-up?
Sure. I just want to thank you, Mark, for bringing this information to Vivint members, and thank you, Jim and Sandy, for coordinating it and running the questions. And as a reminder, like, as Jim mentioned, the recording of today's webinar will be posted on the Vivint site, and you will receive an email notification with a link to where it's located. So thank you all so much, and have a wonderful day or evening, depending on where you are.
Thank you, everybody. See you.